So hello everybody here and on the stream. I will stand on the right place here. So yeah, my name is Andreas and I work as a digital strategist in the Stockholm office. And I'm going to talk more about how to be relevant in this new age of digitalization. And I've been using this phrase for about, I think, 4 or 5 years, talking about how to reach out and connect with your users in a new way. They expect you to understand their behavior or their intent of behavior. So we can see for a long time that we've been doing this digitalization for about 2 decades now. So my background has been helping the industries to redefine how do we work, how do we go to the market, how do we build relationship with our customers. So we can see how things have started to change in the mid-90s. We started to digitize and the globalization created a whole new way of doing things. So I've been doing everything from kind of selling cars online. How do you do that? In the beginning, nobody understood. How do you change that way of going into a shop and buy a car? How do you digitize that experience? But now it's quite common. We expect the digital to be the first touch point, not something in between. And what we can see is that kind of insight is cross-pollinated across all services and all sectors. So when things starts to happen and become mature and simple, the customer expects that to happen in other sectors. So the expectation that your customer have is not based on your business. It's dependent on all businesses, how they operate. So 20 years later, we are quite still in the beginning of digitalization, but now we are starting to connecting the people perspective, not only the technical perspective. And that is what I'm going to talk about. So you all know the the iPhone when it came, it just changed the whole world. People were really changing their behavior, and we can see it everywhere at the moment. And as a marketer or a sales representative, you need to connect with them in that moment where they are, when they have that kind of feeling that they would like to do something. So you need to understand that to be able to work with your customers, you need to understand the relevance. How do you fit into that context? Secondly, you have to make it personal. You need to have that individual attitude, understanding each user's behavior, because every user is different. Also, everything starts to get real time. People expect that feedback to get back to them instantly. They don't want to wait a day or a week, because then they shift the service provider. And the thing is, the technology that we need to use is not that advanced and hard to use anymore. It's not the technology that is the problem. It's how we apply it in our business processes. And also, you need to understand the value you bring into that context and how you keep that value going over time. Otherwise, that relationship will die. And lastly, if you think this is kind of hard to do, you have to make it simple as all other services, not in your sector, but in all sectors. So going back to this title, the know me, coach me, predict me part, that is where we start. The customer expects you to understand them, to understand the intent they have and understand exactly what resonates to them. So what we can see now with digitalization, 20 years later, we see a whole new way of user behavior and expectation of using those in your business. So this is examples that is quite generic and human. Every user would like to be motivated. They would like to be guided. They expect you to understand where they are and make use of that in a proper way. Or maybe predict what's the next step in the process that you have with them. So this is not something that comes from one sector. Every sector needs to understand that this is the new expectation. And if you can live within this area, you can be a champion in creating that personal experience. So this is just an example of how to apply this in any sector. So this is when I'm traveling by train. My app suddenly gives me a deeper insight. It knows where I'm at and my intent. and they say where I should stand on the platform just to make it efficient, both for me and for the train operator. So this is quite simple thing, but it's a value thing. They understand the value in that moment, and they start designing for each moment in that experience. And that is service design. And as Jenny said before, the experience is as important as its products and services. People doesn't really care about products. They understand experience and value. And if you don't bring that to the table, they will not buy from you. So this is what's happening. Every business need to go from that kind of generic burst, kind of say same thing to everybody, to more kind of a hyper-personalized message. So this is an example of the banks, how they done it before. It was quite generic. You had got the same information. It was quite reactive. You got some paperwork coming down by post. That was quite not interesting. Mostly transactional, and it was made in a way that fits the banks, not you. So the big shift now is going over to that other part, being hyper user-centric. So it's about know me, coach me, understand my goals, and the way it fits me. And if you do that, if you reverse the whole model, suddenly all that transactional data can be humanized. Now it's understandable for me. I can get an insight or an overview of my consumption or behavior, and I can be coached in reaching my goals and so on. So this is beautiful. The financial sector has really changed the way they're working, starting to understand the potential in coaching each user. But there is a big problem in this process as well. We can see some kind of digital behavior fatigue. And this is a video. I hope the sound is okay here, but what happens if we are treating our customers in a bad way, creating some kind of digital monsters? And this is how it can look like. No sound. There is no sound. Okay, really, yeah. It's a bit sad that also behavior can be going in the wrong direction. So even if you can communicate and you can notify your users, sometimes it also creates a bad behavior. So that is something we need to work on with service design to create that meaningful interaction that is not only harassing the user or make them hyper kind of focused all the time. So this is a big challenge, the CX, the UX, everything. The big problem is to turn all that data and insight into action. And the big problem is that only 1% of all the data that you can get can be analyzed at the moment. It's really a big problem. Because behind all that data, it's intent, it's behavior, it's information that you need to have to be able to do the next step. So this is where we are standing at the moment, and everybody that works within digitalization understand that only because every data can be captured, it doesn't make any meaning. So that is the big problem today. So to change that, going back to the kind of the know me, coach me, predict me part, the CRM systems, the AI, the marketing technology stack is here to help you. You can do something meaningful out of that data. And this is just an example of how to rebuild that tech stack. So you need to start focusing on the users, not your products. So think about the user, how they want it. Make it personal. Collect the data in a good way. Make it accessible wherever you are in your business. Start focusing on what is the content, the context where you are with the user, and how do you design the experience around that. And this is where you need to make the culture work. This is where you need to bring the people together to build that empathy, to understand what are we trying to solve, what problems is meaningful to solve. And now we can start, instead of analyzing data, we can analyze the behavior in that context. Is that journey going in the right direction, or are we losing the person? And now we can start using analysis in a new way, in behavior analysis, behavior design. And the last part of this is to be able to be more predictive. We need to use that type of AI capabilities that helps us understand the more deeper patterns. And this is something that we as users should not do. We should let the machines do that work for us and off-burden that heavy lifting. So this is just an illustration of a new kind of technology stack that is not tech-centered, it's user-centered. So just jumping forward into the area of CRM and MarTech. So this is an example. I think you all seen how AI is moving into everyday business. And the capabilities of AI is really, really awesome in many ways and scaring in the same time in other ways. And I'm not really, I don't know where I stand in this position, if I'm positive or negative to this change. But this is something we see and we think like, wow, all that capabilities, for what use? What can I use this for in my everyday life? So what we need to do now with AI, we need to make it fit into your daily business operations. And one way of doing that is taking this capability and do something really simple. So simplification of technology is what we need. So this is really cool, but I would say this is pretty cooler. So this is a video. I think the streamers are not seeing the video, but this is an application. This is Edge AI. So there's an iPhone, and you connect your camera, and it observes the user, and in real time create insight. It analyzes the basketball player, and it creates a heat map, so you can see the information. And this is deep learning. It can understand if you're having a good day or a bad day. It can train what side should you train more on, because it starts to understand you. So this know me, coach me, predict me can be taken to a whole new level by applying AI for deep learning. So this is really cool stuff, and this is where we need to go, to apply AI in a simple way, a human way. This is another way. This is more like a symbiotic AI machine. This is a sushi bar. The only thing they do, they add a camera on top of the running sushi table, and then there is a display for the users, the chef. So it analyzes, take pictures of all the tables, all the plates that goes out, and they analyze the behavior of the consumption. And then they train the sushi chef to make the right sushi over the day based on behavior. And then both parties are kind of synchronized, so the consumption patterns and the production patterns is on par. And then you don't have that amount of waste. That's the backside of this, because you don't do things that people don't like. So this is really simple appliance of AI in context that we have never thought about. And still, this is only the beginning of creating new experiences or symbiotic experiences. So what you need to do then, on top of all this, what can you do with technology, creating a better experience? You need to start listening. As Jenny said before here, by start listening to all the data that you capture, set up rules and principle. What does this mean? And also let the AI train to help you understand the deeper meaning. And by doing that, you can then design a good response. So this is a learning machine. It's something that you as a user with your machine can operate. And in the end, you need to deliver that in a relevant way, based on the context, hyper omni-channel oriented. So there was a question before about how do you engage people, the culture part of transformation. And this is the three horizon of innovation. It's about how do you align your business both here and now and in the future? How do you connect that kind of where are we going and where are we at the moment. So this is Volvo, for example, and how they are using the 3 horizon model. So we are starting from the horizon 1, where we are at today, and they need to be constantly innovating. So this is Volvo Cars and their Care by Volvo. And they have a vision of the future of cars is like you don't buy a car, it's a subscription. So that is kind of disruptive today. It's like changing the way how we look at consumption. And I think they are spot on. I think the tagline here in the end of this video showcased the new meaning of consumption, a more smarter and sustainable consumption. By not owning things, you are not owned by things. Quite interesting. So what are they doing in the second horizon? What is that about? Well, the horizon 2 is about what's next. Where are we heading with our business? How do we change the way we're doing business? And this, what we saw before, was part of the second horizon, but they have incorporated that into the first horizon. So the second horizon is more kind of a concept of illustrating what's ahead. So now we're talking self-driving cars. So today, Volvo Labs is a separate organization helping the first horizon to be innovative. So the second and the first horizon is really cool that they can work together and test on real people. But the thing is, this is not, we cannot run on concept. We need a vision. So the third horizon is more about how do we look at mobility in 10 years? So Volvo M is an organization helping them to see the big picture. So talking about alignment within your organization, you need to connect the long-term thinking with your innovation power and then execute it down into your operation business where you are at the moment. So I think this is more kind of how you get things going. You need that 3 horizon perspective. So what we can see today is that everybody say that, everything is possible. Sometimes you talk about technologies, it feels like science fiction. In my sense, I'm a technologist, but I feel that today it's so cool to see that things that were science fiction yesterday is science fact today. And I'm using this video to talk about how fast change is coming. So using Elon Musk's rocket here, this is 30 years in 30 seconds. Expectation is what's upcoming. So sorry, streamers, you missed all that information, but the video is about showing that was 5 years ago was total science fiction is today just ordinary stuff in 5 years. I have never thought about this going to happen 5 years ago. Today is something that happens every day. So technology is really changing what is possible. And just showing you the last piece of this video is maybe more important, talking about AI. The landing of these rockets, and these rockets are bigger than this building. And they're landing by themselves. And today, well, this is mainstream, but just looking at the size of these rockets and understanding, they're doing it themselves. I think it's pretty cool. But this is aligning with the 3 horizon. If he was not talking about the 3rd horizon, the moonshot, people will not gather and be that kind of innovative. They wouldn't understand why are we changing things. So combining this thought leadership, going to Mars, create these people that gets together and co-innovate, and then bring it to the market. So this is really a cool thing of seeing happening today. So summarizing this big movement, we can see that on one side, you need to have this kind of high technology, high-tech touch. You really need to understand how technology is changing our way of doing things. On the other side, we need to understand that the behavior from the users is changing based on that same technology. So having this high-tech and high-touch approach is critical to succeed in this future. So we are seeing new business processes, more autonomous, self-running. We see self-organizing ecosystems driven by technology, but run by people. On the other side, we need to understand the value. Where do you fit in to the value game? And also, how can you make use of that insight of all that data that you have or may have? So this is kind of the new glue in making innovation in the future. You need to combine high touch and high tech. So some recommendations. This digital maturity doesn't come fast. It comes with friction, testing things, understanding things, relearning things. And as an example, creating this kind of value game with your customers, you need to explore. How do you connect with the users in new ways? And this picture is showing, this is an example from a lock company. I was trying to make an example of how they can look for a greater picture. So sometimes you start selling a lock to a customer over the table, and the customer needs to take care of that lock themselves and put it into the house. And in that level, you are quite low value to the customer, and you don't really use the technology as much as you can. So you can start with using kind of one tool, one process. It's quite isolated. You don't know where the lock will be used. Quite short-term deal. When this lock is sold, you don't know if the customer will get back. Is it me? Yeah. And often you don't measure all that information. So often the business starts on this level, quite transactional. The second level is when you start working, looking at the user behavior. What are you going to use that lock for? Now you can start building an infrastructure. Now you can build a smart home using those locks. But to be able to do that, you need to understand the journeys, the user journeys. You can start connecting many processes and behaviors. And you can also coordinate how that will work together. And you can also start measuring the usage of that service. So taking that next step, become user-centric, now you can start looking at the value. Where is the real value in this situation? So suddenly, a company that sells locks suddenly can start talking about the monetization of buildings. How do we control a building? How do we utilize it in the best of ways? So now you can look on the whole life cycle of that consumer or customer. And you can be more predictive, and you can work more real time, and you can work with insight. Start to build a whole new value game for your customers. So this is a kind of evolutionary step. You need to start learning, adapting, listening, and innovating. And I wouldn't say that you can take 2 steps in one jump. You need to take every step one at a time and learn, and get the people to learn in your business. So the second part is, of course, to help your organization to become that efficient team. So looking at businesses today, they need to learn all these things. How do we work together? How do we act as one team? Using automation, using real-time processes, being able to analyze what is happening with my client. Make it more social, because business need to be social. You need to be able to communicate within your team and with your customer, and secure that the customer journey is really personalized. So it's not like one size fits all, but more kind of one-to-one. And also make it more role-based, because every user in the system doesn't have the same role in a user journey. So define how the role will be equally shared in your team and how they work together solving the problem. And lastly, I will show you, this is just a case trying to apply all this kind of big talk about what can we do. And this is an operation model that we're applying over and over again to help businesses to change the way they do their operation efficiency. So this is just, this is a model that is applied with just small alterations. So from one side, you have the internal perspective, the teams within your organization and the culture. Then you need to build your new way of working on new platforms. The new platforms that have all that capabilities of marketing technology, AI, and CRM, and so on. The third part is how you go to the market. What is the market window? And in this case, the book concept were 250 stores in 67 countries. It's quite complex to work in a distributed team model. The blue part is more about the marketing, the channels, the offerings, and the green part here is the customer journey. So everything here needs to be kind of smooth designed, how it all connects. So by using this type of operation models, it's quite simple for businesses to understand how everything has to be interconnected. So this is a kind of a learning machine. The users starting to get out personalized communication and then get back insight and can optimize their journeys. But it is a sequel. You need to make it into a loop to be able to learn. So a lean and mean learning machine is what this is about. And I wouldn't say that technology is the driver. It enables us, but the people are the drivers. You as an organization are the drivers of this change. So that was my presentation. So thank you for listening. I have a QR code. So there is really a cool thing in your iPhone or something like that, if you have a smartphone. If you look at your camera and you look at that QR code, you can book a meeting with me instantly. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. You made it look and feel very simple, why we are not all doing it. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Fascinating stuff and looks simple. But what I would like, maybe a comment and a question is as AI is now more and more like taking part in our daily lives, and it's sort of scary stuff also with deep learning and so forth. How do you feel ethical AI taking sort of or playing a role? We have some rules with GDPR in Europe, but then again, that's not the case all over the world.
Well, I think as a digitalist or kind of a futuristic thinking person, I believe that we need to bring back the trust of using data as a way of creating value. And I think AI is still in an early stage, and I think that trust will be breached many times. I think in the long term it will be the next step of technology. So AI will change the way we are using technology. And in that learning curve, we will do many mistakes. But I think with GDPR, it will become more mature and ethical. I think we should have done GDPR in the 80s, really. So it's a good way forward, and we need to bring back the trust in data from people.
Any more questions from the audience? If not, thank you very much, Andreas, sharing those tasting notes on digitalization and transformation.